also a co-presenter for today's day one session of the Filipino Employee Wellbeing Summit. So, gonna share my screen now. There you go. All right. Siguro while we're waiting for everyone to come in, because we still have 2 more minutes to officially start, can you please type in the chat box something that you are most grateful for today? So what is something, can you contemplate now? What is something that you are most grateful for? Para I can also see if the chat box is working. Because I think we're expecting around 600, 700 people here. Ayan, Maricor said family. Mikhail said, Jeffrey said, thankful for the chance to do better today. Waking up every morning, I'm grateful. I've got a job. Congratulations. Family, life, my dogs. Sabi ni Josh, the opportunity to make the most of every day. Sabi ni Gabby, smooth transaction at the bank. Yeah. Family. I'm grateful for wonderful clients. Hi, Regina. Hello. Nice to see you here. And congratulations on all your wonderful clients. I can also see other familiar names in the chat box. So, hello, Rog Enriquez, Kevin Nera, Nicole Gian Hernandez. Nakita ko si Grace Camacho from my previous company. She was our service provider. Hello. Yes, Regina, I remember you, of course. It's so nice to see you all here. Please say hi. If you know me at all, don't hesitate to say hi. We will be starting in a little bit. Okay? So see, ang bilis, di ba? Like there are already 150 people in the room. Thank you so much for coming in this early. We will make this worth it for you. All right? Sige. So since it's already 3:01, I guess we can officially start muna, no? So we're going to officially start with some reminders. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves again. So our company is called Positive Workplaces. Our mission is we co-create cultures that enhance the well-being of the Filipino workforce. And we are doing this through our what we call positivity ripples. So of course, before you can go to positive cultures or before you can create positive cultures, you have to start with leading self muna. And a lot of what we're doing right now in these free webinars are actually helping people with knowledge to be able to lead themselves first before they can lead others. Diba sabi nga natin, you can never pour out of an empty cup. So that means that we start muna with ourselves. From there, when you have already filled up your cup, then we will be helping you out lead others. So we can help you with that through our courses. We can help you with that through our collaborations that you will have with us. And eventually, when you are more capable of leading others, you can also start leading cultures. And you can consult with us on how to lead better positive cultures. You can also engage us as your service providers, and we can also become your coaches in that sense. And all of those, of course, go outward into the ripple of when you already have the capability to lead cultures. That's the time when it ripples to more positive workplaces inside your organization and around. So a couple of reminders. Please have another device with you that's ready for you to be able to participate. As you know, in positive workplaces, we're very fond of using Mentimeter and other digital tools that will make the conversations more inclusive so that we will have inputs coming from you, hindi lang inputs coming from us. That way, it's really going to be like a very enriching conversation and meaningful learning session across the whole an hour and a half that we will have with one another. Prepare pen and paper just in case you're that type of person who takes down notes. And we also encourage your engagement. But please be respectful, of course, so that other people will feel that they are also welcome to share their inputs in the chat box or in Mentimeter. Right? So apart from that, we would like to remind everyone that we will be issuing certificates of attendance, just like what you saw in the video in the waiting room. However, please make sure that you fill out the post-evaluation form that will come after the whole session. Kasi if you're not able to fill that out, we're sorry but we cannot issue the certificate to you kasi automated yung issuance natin ng certificate of attendance. I'm sure most of you who've already attended a lot of our sessions are very familiar with that process. But for those who aren't yet, please make sure to use the link later for the post-evaluation, and then enter your correct name and your email addresses. Okay, that's very important because sometimes people will ask us to revise their names. Please make sure that your names are correct. And also your email addresses para tama yung masasendan ng certificate of attendance. All right? So, without further ado, we would like to welcome you to the day one of the 2022 Filipino Employee Wellbeing Summit, also entitled Kamusta Ka, Empleyadong Pilipino. So this is a 3-day summit. This is free. This is part of our advocacy. This is part of our gift to you because of how much you've contributed to the growth of the community that Positive Workplaces has been serving for the last 3 years that we have started as an organization. So unang-una po, maraming salamat po sa inyo. This is of course in collaboration with SOLA. This is in collaboration of course with Rhea Gadi. This is in collaboration as well with Child Fam, and of course Chewy, who is part of our collaborator, and JCI Cebu Sinulog, who we have Attorney Nell here, who's part of this session as well. Thank you so much for being part of this, and of course Kevin Nera, who's also here and as one of our facilitators in day 3. So maraming salamat po sa inyo. All of these would not be possible without your participation and your collaboration. So we will be starting this day. Let me first officially introduce myself. So my name is John Baluyot. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Positive Workplaces. You know me as Nikki's other half. Generally, you see Nikki a lot in our webinars. I was also the 2020 National President of the Philippine Society for Talent Development, also known as the Philippine Society for Training Development. So I see some other familiar names here from PSTV like Pauline Barrero of Enchanted Kingdom, Raj Enriquez of Robinson's Bank. So thank you so much for following me here even. So I also graduated with a degree of Master of Leadership in Organizational Learning from Monash University, Australia, and an MBA from LaSalle and Behavioral Science from the University of Santo Tomas. With me, of course, so I'm your co-presenter and your moderator. With me are, of course, 2 people who are very close to my heart. So these 2 people started as interns in Positive Workplaces. So our Culture Changers program have now bred resource speakers. So we are so happy to see them sharing their expertise and their knowledge to you. First is Kurt De Castro. So Kurt is the Senior Research and Development Officer of Positive Workplaces. He graduated with a degree of psychology from the University of the Philippines as a cum laude graduate. He started as an intern, as part of our first batches in Positive Workplaces. He entered as a Research and Development Associate, became a Research and Development Officer, and now he's our Senior Research and Development Officer, who is the lead for the Filipino Employee Wellbeing Report that will be presented to you today. So I'm very proud to introduce everyone our resource speaker, Kurt De Castro. Hi, Kurt.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Nice to see all of you here.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Please say hi to Kurt. Our second resource person is Monica. So Monica Ciliona was also part of the Culture Changers program. She's part of batch 8. And she graduated with a dual degree from the Ateneo de Manila University of Psychology and Economics. She's now taking up her Master's of Organizational Psychology from Ateneo as well. She used to be part of Willis Towers Watson's. And she became also the people and culture head of Bihasa Philippines. And right now, she's the lead consultant of Strategic Organizational Learning Academy, also known as SOLA. So, hi, Monica.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. Nice to
Hello. It's so nice to see both of you. How are you both and where are you calling from?
Ako from home lang dyan. From home lang. Okay naman. Really excited for this afternoon. Marami tayong pag-uusapan and hopefully marami din tayong insights na makuha from everyone, especially from our webinar participants.
Thank you so much. Ayan, Sir Kurt, ang dami nang nag-hi sa'yo sa chat box. Please say hi back. Hello also, Monica. How about you, Monica? Where are you calling from?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm also calling from home in the great city of Marikina.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited then for all the insights and discussions that will go around our well-being report, situationer. Yeah.
Yay! Thank you so much. And I'm so happy and I'm so proud of both of you for being here. Because that's really our objective, no? Like even if we start from the internship, our objective is really to be able to groom more people, to become more resource persons about well-being, especially given how important it is nowadays. So without further ado, let us now officially start by sharing with everyone what the learning roadmap of this day one of the summit will be. First, of course, is let's start with a basic question. Why is employee well-being important? I know that this is something that we already know naman eh. Like we know well-being is important, but we will discuss just how important exactly it is. Para the gravity of the situation will sink into everyone, and it can be a call to action for us to do something about what the current situation is. Second is we will be sharing with you our research by talking about what does employee well-being really comprise. And Kurt will be our resource person for that. And then third, we will share with you some tips on how we can champion well-being at work. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, again, for the warm greetings to Kurt and to Monica in the chat box. We will now start with a mentee question. So the question is, why is employee well-being important? And the mentee question here is, I want you to look at this image. And during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, you look at this as a spectrum. On the other side, you will see I'm feeling tired and losing motivation at work. And on the other side, you see that I'm feeling happy and I'm functioning really well. So our mentee question for everyone is, we want you to go to the mentee link in the chat box and answer this question by pinning where you are during the most part of the pandemic. Okay? If you're going to pin yourself during the most part of the pandemic, where do you think you're gonna pin yourself? And we want you to be very honest because we cannot see naman where you're pinning eh. And we do not see who you are. We're not asking for your names. We just want to know where majority of everyone is so that we can share also how related your responses are to the research that we've done in relation to the research of other people and also the research that we've done in relation to what we were able to gather through our survey. Ayan, so we can already see a lot of people on the left end. Medyo madami, no? Tapos I'm so happy for the people who are feeling happy and functioning well. Bless you and thank God for you to be in that position. Not everyone is in that level of flourishing or happiness. Please make sure to cherish that. For the others naman, we empathize with you. We also felt it. We also felt how we can lose a lot of our motivation and a lot of ourselves during the course of a major Black Swan event, just like the pandemic. Okay? So thank you so much for sharing. Ang galing, magka-300 na tayo halos doon sa Zoom room natin. So please make sure to inform your other colleagues who are not yet here to be part of this very important event. So now that you see that, let me ask you another question. So the question now is, what do you think are the manifestations of low well-being for you as an employee? Ano yung nakikita nyo na because low yung well-being, ano yung nakikita nyo sa sarili nyo, ano yung nagiging impact sa inyo, ano yung nakikita nyo sa ibang tao? So for those people who have experienced low well-being during the pandemic, you will be able to answer this question. For those people who have experienced high level of well-being, you can look at other people in your workplace and try to see it from their eyes or from their shoes. Ano yung nakikita nyo na impact pag nakakakita kayo ng tao na mababa yung well-being? Ayan, di ba? Nakikita nyo. So Monica and Kurt, you see people's responses here. Oh, I don't want to go to work anymore. Or I just want to do the bare minimum. Just coasting along. You know, even people in positive workplaces, we're not exempt from this. There are people even in positive workplaces who will feel sometimes na I just want to do the bare minimum. And that is perfectly fine. Because that is what you are feeling. That's what you have felt. What's important is what are we going to do with that, right? So low productivity, ayan, low energy, unproductive. You became sickly also. Ayan, stubborn. We sometimes become stubborn and irritable, right? Diba? Monica and Kurt, are there some of the things here that you can relate with?
Definitely, I related automatically to stubborn and quiet. Yung for me, it was almost, I didn't want to do what I had to do, but I still had to do it. It was always, I always had to almost overcome that hurdle every morning.
And it's so tough, diba? It's so tough to have that. Like you're trying to pull yourself, from the bed. Tapos alam mo na, ayaw mo naman talaga. Alam mo yun. So yeah, I totally feel you, Monica. How about you, Kurt? Is there anything here that you can relate with?
Sa akin dyan yung sa low energy. Because I think for me, low well-being, ang pinakaunang nagmamanifest sa akin is more on the like physical, parang low energy, madaling mapagod. And sometimes even if I, want to keep working or I want to keep on doing something or tuloy lang yung pagiging productive, usually yung physical yung unang bumibigay na parang, okay, parang kailangan ko na matulog, kailangan ko magpahinga kasi na-feel ko na yun nga, parang humihina yung energy, sumasakit na yung ulo ko na parang it's really my body telling me na, you should take a rest, take a quick breather.
Yeah, and there are a lot of studies that show direct correlation between low well-being and physical manifestations, right? Like yung minsan may mga iba pa nga na ang nahihirapan sila paghinga, minsan nahihirapan sila na to have good sleep, minsan ang daming like sometimes for me, another effect is alam mo sumasakit yung likod. For some reason, like if you have like low well-being, nararamdaman mo yung mga yung likod or yung joints mo, 'di ba, starting to ache. And a lot of these things, like for example, this one, medyo trigger warning lang for everyone who are here, but we're entertaining some of these thoughts for psychological safety. To a certain extent, some people even start harboring suicidal thoughts. And I'm very sorry to hear that you are experiencing this, and this is not easy. I hope that you are getting the help that you need, or people here who are feeling the same way are getting the help that we need. But you're not alone. A lot of other people are also feeling the same thing during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic. And let me show you some of the things that we were able to find out when we started doing review of related literature. Did you know that during the early phase of 2020, at least 3.6 million Filipinos suffered from mental health challenges? So if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling those types of depressive thoughts, you're not alone. A huge part of the population have felt it, especially during the pandemic. Kasi ang daming changes na major na nangyari sa mundo. 1 out of 3 COVID-19 patients who were diagnosed with mental health condition within 6 months of testing positive for COVID. And a lot of these are really heavy statistics, but we will get into our point later why these are important. Did you know that there was also economic effects because of high work demands, loss of livelihood, and the struggles with work-life balance? And that feeling of job insecurity and uncertainty of the future, sino rito yung nakaramdam niyan? Yung alam nyo during the pandemic, hindi mo sure kung magkakatrabaho ka pa, at hindi mo alam kung ano yung mangyayari sa future natin, especially during the lockdowns, right? Sino dito? Please feel free to share in the chat box. 23% have thought of quitting due to well-being challenges. Diba? A lot of us are feeling these same things, right? Ayan, nag-raise ng hand sila resume. Some people are also saying yes in the chat box, like Jolina. You're not alone. Employee well-being has various implications in the workplace because they have a direct relationship with turnover and absenteeism, motivation and job satisfaction, and even social relationships. In fact, 85% of employees are generally not engaged in the workplace, especially because their well-being is affected in the course of their work. So this is from the study of Pradhan and Happy in 2019. But one of the most important things that we want to highlight here is there is a very, very important link between our economy and employee well-being. They continually affect one another. I-ambush na kita, Monica, because dual major ka psychology and economics. What do you think is the rational explanation behind the relationship between economy and employee well-being?
Well, so just to share then, this just harkens back to my thesis back in undergrad economics, because my thesis was in happiness economics, meaning how does all our economic indicators affect the happiness or subjective well-being of people? And studies show nga that, of course, as income rises, there is a proportionate, or there is some increase then in your happiness. That's because we need money to buy things. We need money to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to house ourselves. And then if you guys are familiar with Maslow, so the things that I was mentioning, those are the first ladders of his his pyramid of needs. And then eventually, once you have all of those basic necessities, then you can have the experiences, the gala tayo, the bibili akong bagong phone, bibili akong bagong game, etc. So that's why they're very heavily linked, because we whether or not we like to hear it, we need material things, or we need to pay for things in order to achieve or to have those positive emotions day to day.
That's true, no? And especially now, considering what's happened with the inflation, di ba? Like, sino yung sabi dito na parang 200 ba or 400 pesos na yung isang supot ng sibuyas na nakikita natin sa supermarket or sa palengke. And that has a direct impact also on employee well-being, because syempre survival yun diba? Survival yung makikita natin. So here are some of the other arguments for why economy and employee well-being are very much related and are continually affecting one another. Number one, because a huge chunk of the country's GDP is actually coming from the service sector. So the service sector comprised 60% almost of the country's GDP. And as you know, the service sector is fueled by labor. Manufacturing and agriculture, even if some of them have already been automated, they are still fueled by labor, and they are still a huge chunk of the economy. So pag nagsasuffer yung well-being, syempre, magsasuffer din yung ekonomiya. Second is, tell me if you agree with this. Employee well-being affects leadership, and leadership affects everyone. See nga, can you let me know in the chat box if you agree with that statement? Naniniwala ba kayo na, for example, sobrang baba ng well-being ng mga ka-teammates mo, pag leader ka, bumababa rin yung well-being mo, di ba? And in the reverse angle, pag mababa naman yung well-being ng leader, hindi ba nakaka-apekto rin doon sa moral ng mga employees? So employee well-being affects leadership, and leadership affects everyone. Walang exempted sa well-being kasi tao tayo that's part of being human. Right? Ayan, dami na natin nakikitang yes sa chat box. Sabi ni Leonardo, yes. Sabi ni Jessa, very true. Sabi ni Christian Paulo Hernandez, super duper, 1000% agree. So thank you so much. True na true, sabi ni Angela. Sabi ni Sarah, 100% agree. So thank you so much for participating in the chat box, everyone. And good afternoon also to you, Angelo, from National Teachers College. The third thing about this argument is talent creates performance and talent is well-being based. Naniniwala ba kayo dito? Talent creates performance and talent is well-being based. 'Di ba alam naman natin na hinihingan tayo lahat ng performance? So pag hinihingan tayo ng performance, tapos yung performance natin is based sa talent at yung well-being natin, ay yung talent natin is based sa well-being, eh di malamang mababa rin yung performance, 'di ba? So that's the natural, rational, and logical way to look at how are we going to improve performance. Well-being is one of the indicators of such. Sabi rin ni Jeffrey here, what the leaders feel also can be felt by the members. So that is in relation to the second bullet, which is employee well-being affects leadership and leadership affects everyone. So now that you have all of these and how important this is for us to realize, what we are now going to share with you through Kurt is we're going to share with you some insights from the research that we have conducted on Filipino employee well-being para po magamit nyo doon sa paggawa ng mga programa and strategies on well-being. Let me ask you this question. If alam na natin na importante yung employee well-being at ganito siya ka-importante, my question to you is, bakit hindi lahat ng tao, bakit hindi lahat ng organization merong well-being strategy in the workplace? Sige nga, can you answer that question in the chat box? Sa tingin nyo, kung alam na natin na ganito ka-importante yung well-being, bakit kaya not in all organizations, hindi sobrang taas na priority yung well-being strategy? Ayan, napakadami na kaagad ng response. So sabi ni Regina, they cannot quantify the ROI in investing on employee well-being. That is a very, very good point, Regina. May cost savings din, sabi ni Georgie, because priority ng kumpanya yung ibang gastos. Resistance to change, sabi ni Karil. Some employers do not prioritize well-being program budget-wise because it's difficult, because focus on output, not necessarily the process. Well-being is seen as an individual responsibility. Alam nyo, nakakatuwa kayong mga audience, ha? Sobrang tatalino ng mga sagot nyo. Alam nyo kung bakit talaga hindi napaprioritize, no? And I think the reason why we're here is because we want to help you create a case for your organization so that you can influence and convince them more that this is something that they shouldn't ignore. Kasi tama yung sinabi nyo na hindi mapakita yung ROI di ipakita natin, subukan natin through the information that we can share with you by showing to them the direct impact of well-being to performance. We are also going to try to share with you na baka hindi enough yung information na meron kayo. We're going to share that with you today. Because not employers see the long-term effect of well-being. Some of the things that we have discussed to you a while ago on the why, you can use that to convince your management how important well-being is. And if you are part of management and leadership, please use this information to even convince the top management in your organization to invest on employee well-being programs. So maraming salamat sa mga sumagot sa chat box. Now, I'm going to introduce to you again, I'm going to turn over to Kurt so that we will be discussing to you the Filipino Employee Wellbeing Report. It's important that we did this because kung napansin nyo, hindi sobrang dami ng mga studies na well-being na local. Diba? May mga fragments of well-being studies na local pero dahil hindi sobrang dami, we took it upon ourselves to do our own survey so that yung culture natin ma-reflect doon sa well-being report that we will now be sharing to you. So Kurt, without further ado, parang nakaapat na ako na without further ado. Kurt, I'll now transfer the lead to you so that you can start discussing your part on the Filipino Employee Wellbeing Report.
Ayan. Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. So again, my name is Kurt. So I'm the Senior Research and Development Officer of Positive Workplaces. Yeah, so following up on what John said, I'll be quickly explaining the survey that we conducted. and the results of which are the reason why we are here today in this webinar and for the rest of the days of the summit also. No? So earlier this year, we sent out a call for respondents post asking for people to participate in this well-being survey that we wanted to do. No? And our goal was to better understand what the current state of well-being is for Filipino employees. No? What are some possible challenges, yung mga pain points na meron yung mga employees. And of course, we wanted to do our own data gathering and to gather our own statistics na rin, similar to the ones na John just talked about. No? So we gathered over 800 respondents through an online survey. And this is something that we promoted during our webinars, sa social media pages namin. And if any of you here this afternoon were in our webinars noong July, if you heard about the survey and you answered, no, very quickly, I want to say thank you so much then, because you've helped us produce the insights na we will be talking about this afternoon. No? So very quickly, ito yung mga naging criteria for those who participated in the survey. No? You had to be 21 to 60 years old, Filipino citizen residing in the Philippines, employed and working in the Philippines, and you had to be employed full-time as well. Next slide, please, John. Ayan. And then just some additional insights for the demographics, no, of our respondents. Most of them were from the 21 to 40-year-old age bracket. Most of the respondents were female. And then also, most were from NCR and Calabarzon. Ayan. So now we can talk about the actual report that we produced, no, from that online survey. And again, if you followed our page, we actually released this situation already, no, a couple of weeks ago, introducing some key items that I am about to share, and which will also serve as our first point of discussion this afternoon. And dito sa report na to, we also put there mga simple research-based recommendations, and I think we'll be sharing the link to this later as well. No? So abangan nyo na lang yun. Para hopefully, as individuals, and even for organizations and employers, you might be able to find some value in this report. So next slide, Sean. Ayan, and then punta na tayo dun sa items. Yeah, so in that situation, you know, we talked about some key results. So first, 44% believe that they are not adequately compensated for the work that they do. So very interesting, no? Next, John. Ayan, 39% of survey respondents are unable to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So we're talking about ayan, a health and lifestyle na tayo. And then 49% also shared, no, that they have difficulty keeping up with the demands of work. And then next item, John. 68% of survey respondents find the work that they do repetitive. So medyo nagkakaroon na ng monotony sa work. And then finally, so yung fifth key item natin, 39% of survey respondents state that their workplace negatively impacts their health. So you can see here, no, medyo we have two items related to health and lifestyle. Merong isa na related to finance, no, finances, and I think sila Monica and John talked about kanina yung implications ng economy on our well-being, and then the other two very related to how we actually approach yung tasks natin sa work. No? So ito yung 5 items na magiging first point of discussion natin. No? So you can take a look, you can take a photo, maybe a screenshot if you want to save it. And then I can see already some people sending some of their insights related to these 5 items. No? So send nyo lang anything that you want to share, maybe my experiences kayo, you have certain parang feelings about these items, you can just share them in the chat box, gather your thoughts, and then we can bring in John and Monica to help us with the discussion.
Hey, thank you so much, Kurt, for that first part of the discussion, for the first part of the report. To everyone who's seeing this, I know that a lot of you are able to relate to some of these items, no? Please let us know which of these items do you see the most in your workplace. Para makita rin natin at ma-process natin during my discussion and our discussion with Monica and Kurt, like how exactly are these, how exactly do people relate to this? At saka, gaano kalaki kaya yung impact nitong mga to sa kanila. So Ayan, sabi ni Tara Mateo, 44% at saka yung 49%, sir. So, not adequately compensated, saka have difficulty keeping up with the demands of their work. So yeah, seeing these, point one for the educational sector, sabi ni Paul John Albon. Sabi ni Caridad, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Wow, 4 items ka agad yung sa iyo. Monica, what do you think of these? What do you think of people's responses? What do you think of the key items that you're seeing now?
Well, I'm seeing that a lot are related to the financial side of it, which isn't surprising because we did mention early on that the economy, the finance side of things will have an effect on your well-being. If I can just highlight one point pala, yung kay Sir Paul Albon, yung point one for the education sector. This just recalls to mind for me, it's a new buzzword. So kung buzzword natin last month was quiet quitting, it's a new buzzword that I learned around employee compensation and why something like this could be happening, that people feel like they're not compensated properly. It's called the passion tax. And I think people in our teachers in the education sector would maybe feeling this. This is when you love your job, wherein it feels to the point of a calling. So employers, leaders, business owners are more likely to ask more of you kasi they know na, oh, you're enjoying it naman. For some, parang they feel like okay lang naman to because they are enjoying it. But item number one sort of emphasizes or highlights na there will always still come a point na too much is too much. Diba? Enough is enough. And makikita din to sa point 3, wherein passion, your love for the job, because I have so much respect for teachers because personally, I don't think I can do it myself. If they're not able to handle the demands of their work, sobrang cascading down yung effects nun in the organization and even in nation building.
What do you call that, Monica? Passion tax?
The passion tax. So,
The passion tax.
dahil passionate ako sa ginagawa ko, so kunyari, passionate ako magturo, and we know these stories yung teachers na sila nabibili ng equipment sa classroom, or yung sila yung gagawa nung sa cartolina or i-decorate nila yung nila for the students out of their own pocket, out of their own time, na na dami nilang extra na ginagawa na hindi compensated, na siguro for a certain time sa passion nila hinuhugot yung energy nila, pero that's going to run out, diba? And when that energy runs out, nandiyan na I'm feeling tired and exhausted and unmotivated.
I love that you raised that though, because I think it's not just applicable to the education sector. If, for example, if I'm using positive workplaces as an example of passion tax, a lot of our employees and our interns are very passionate about well-being, diba? And as a growing organization, sometimes we are only riding on the passion muna because nga, like, syempre, there are those financial challenges that we have to hurdle against. But you are right though, like even for other companies, there will have to be a point wherein they have to prioritize the other needs of their employees. Kasi once that passion tax runs out, then dun papasok yung attrition. No? I'm wondering if our audience is also experiencing that, yung tinatawag na passion tax, na they're so emotionally invested with their job na sometimes it's at the expense of a lot of things that they're taking from their lives. Tapos sometimes puputok na lang sila and alis na ako, parang gano'n. O kaya, surprise, hindi ko na kaya. Di ba? Nararamdaman kaya yun ng mga natin, ng ating participants. Because that's a very good point, Monica, that you're raising. And I hope that people are starting to become mindful of that. And I think that's the reason why a huge part of the key items here, yung 44%, believe that they are not adequately compensated for the work that they do. Especially now, during inflation, di ba, mas relevant yan, Monica, di ba? Kasi mas nararamdaman yung tao.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Basically, you can sort of think of it like yung passion natin for what we're doing. It's the age-old metaphor of your cup, na it can overflow. Pero if you keep sloshing out, and now with inflation, basically that yung cup mo na yan, naging tasa na lang yan.
Mas mabilis. Mas
Mas mabilis.
na maubos,
Oo.
di ba?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I thank you so much, Monica, for sharing that. That should serve as a warning to all of us, really. To all managers and leaders. That should serve as a warning to all of us na we have to do something about the other elements of well-being and not just relying on passion all the time. Kasi otherwise, then that doesn't fulfill that whole hierarchy of needs that we're talking about through Maslow, di ba? Or even other well-being frameworks that we have also available from positive psychology. So let me read some of the other responses in the chat box. Agree daw si Alexandra doon sa passion tax. Pati si Caridad and si Resume, si Georgie. Ramdam to the bones. Ayan. Sabi ni Carla, super relate. The disillusionment if the passion runs out. Very interesting yung survey result that may guide us in planning as we move forward. Thank you so much, Pauline. So other than passion tax, Monica, what are the other things that you're able to observe in the key items that we have in front of us?
I think the theme of health, and correct me na lang if I'm wrong, I'm reading this as sort of more physical health, like yung 39%. Na-realize ko dalawa pala yung 39% dito and they're both related to health. 39% are unable to maintain a healthy lifestyle, or another 39% na negatively impact yung health nila. This is very well, one of course is very telling of the times that we're living in right now. Na to think na so na-exhaust na what we're doing on a day-to-day basis already exhausts our passion, already exhausts our physical energy, and now it's eating away at our health. And that's and studies have shown naman talaga that is the case since 19 kopong. Now when the body, actually there's a book now that I was about to say it, The Body Keeps the Score. There's a book about that wherein it's related to trauma, but it's very timely then na your emotional stress, your psychological stress, you hold that in your body. Yan yung sinasabi mo dyan na yung joints mo nag-i-ache na, or yung likod mo nag-i-ache na. Because literally sometimes you're tensing You're tensing in your seat, 'di ba? Or if you're commuting, for example, lalo na over the pandemic, yung our frontliners who had to go into work to support everyone. Automatic yun na the body takes the toll, not only because you're exposed to pollution, you're exposed to the virus, pero you're also exposed to just the feeling of being cramped around other people during a pandemic, the anxiety of it all, diba? Na that just raises your heart, and gosh, there's so many studies out there. Just Google anxiety and heart diseases. Wag pala ma-angst kayo, wag yun yung gawin niyo. Pero you get my point na it's unsurprising.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are agreeing with you, Monica, no? Sabi ni Paul John, siguro factor din yung pandemic na naging priority na ng mga tao ang health. Tapos sabi ni Ana, set a value to yourself, give credit to your creator, love your neighbors, love yourself. Sabi ni Jeffrey, employees are possibly having difficulty in getting enough sleep. Even kapag rest day, kasi di maiwasan maalala ang workload the next day. Especially during remote work setups, di ba? Diba? Especially during remote work setups. Wait, I can see Kurt nodding a little bit kanina. Kurt, I just want to ask you also, and feel free to I know that it may be a little bit sensitive because you know that you're working in positive workplaces, but I want you to be very candid with us because we want people to also see perspectives coming from different ways. So how do you, what are you able to relate with, especially on the unable to maintain a healthy lifestyle part and yung start that their workplace negatively impacts their health?
Yeah, no, just on the point that Monica shared, the theme on health. I want to point out yung sinabi ni Carla Isabel na 39% nawala ng workspace and home space separation. So that's something actually na we don't think about a lot, pero slowly nagkakaroon siya ng effect sa lifestyle natin kasi of course, pandemic, diba, lahat tayo nag-work from home at one point. The challenge with yung work from home nga is, it's hard to draw the line between work and your home life, no? Lalo na, of course, most of us, for those who live with their families, diba? So, dahil tuloy-tuloy lang yung work, tapos titigil ka lang para kumain or to do chores, even yung mga things that usually we have separate time for, kunwari yung exercise, diba? And slowly, we're forgetting to be mindful about how our body is actually physically feeling kasi yung nga, work lang ng work. No? Kasi ang daling sabihin na, sige, hihiga na lang ako pagkatapos nito kasi nandyan lang yung kama, di ba? Minsan kung ano-ano na lang kinakain natin because we're in the middle of a meeting. I know some people na sometimes kakain pa sila mismo dun sa kung saan sila nag-work habang nagtatrabaho. So talagang nawawala na ng separation or ng boundary. And because of that, no, we aren't making healthy choices, no? Or we aren't thinking about resting din, di ba? Kasi we have less time to think about these things kasi malabo na nga yung boundary. So these choices na we don't actually realize we are making, they all add up together and masama yung nagiging effect na sa lifestyle natin.
I really appreciate, Kurt, that you prompted that, no? Because I don't think people realize that is actually a thing that's starting to snowball. Kasi 'di ba, like when you look at hybrid workplaces or remote workplaces, it's not going to leave kasi people already benefited from it, eh. 'Di ba? Less commute, 'di ba? O kaya like you can spend more time with family or you can also like just come out of bed and then go directly to work without even sometimes brushing your teeth, ganyan or something. So,
That was
pero knowing that parts of it will stay kasi people benefited from it, yung sinasabi mo, Kurt, is merong trade-off yon. May trade-off yon. When the boundaries or the lines are blurred, then people start, especially the non-integrators, yung hindi masyadong sanay doon sa pag-integrate ng work and life, naaapektuhan yung sistema nila. Na sometimes that blurred line, just like what you were saying, that blurred line starts to affect us physically because hindi natin napapansin na ang tagal na pala nating nakaupo. O kaya hindi natin napapansin na ang tagal. For example, ako, yung nagrereklamo ako kay Gabi noong isang araw, sabi ko, ba't ganon? 6 hour, parang 5 hour ako nakaharap sa screen. Nagkakaroon ako ng migraine. Tapos yun pala, it was because sobrang babad na ako sa screen because it's so easy to be on the screen when you are in your remote work setup, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that information, Kurt. Monica, would you wanted to add something to that ba? Or
well, first and foremost, i-disclose ko lang na natamaan ako nung sinabi mo yung gugulang ka na lang from bed, nandiyan na yung yung workplace mo. But yeah, I just wanna definitely agree and echo yung point ni Kurt that you further elaborated. There's a trade-off. There is always going to be a cost to some of the benefits that we're having. Na we've lost basically that space for us to unclench. Kasi right now, yun na nga, pagising mo, ayan na yung trabaho. Pag gusto mo mag-relax, technically trabaho pa rin yung nasa harapan mo kasi it's a switch of a tab.
Right.
So that's why it's very important for some, ako, yun yung realize ko na I still need a commute sort of when I go to work. Yung bababa lang ng stairs, tas yun yung work ko instead of yung
para mag-iba.
Para mag-iba. Oo, maiba yung window. Parang ganon. So if possible, kailangan talaga.
You know what? It's important that we're raising this because it's here to stay. Alam mo yon? Remote workplaces, hybrid workplaces, it's here to stay. Kumbaga, ang hirap i-resist niyan because when it's here to stay, ibig sabihin, physically, we will have to adjust to it talaga. And mentally, we will have to adjust to it because that's the reality of the future of work as we see it now. So I guess my question to the group, and maybe to also you, Monica and Curtis, my question to the people in the room is, now that you see this, now that you see the key items in front of you, ano sa tingin nyo yung mga low-hanging fruits na pwede nyong gawin? Right? Kasi like, here through our audience, may mga nakikita na ako na ang dami nilang nagkakaroon ng realization. Like sabi dito na Sabi ni Ana Margarita, yes, I agree. The pandemic took off our blindfolds in certain areas of life. Grabe, sabi ni Jolina, looking at all of these data makes me realize how much has happened since the pandemic actually occurred. Hugs to everyone who's been struggling. Ano sa tingin nyo yung pwede nating mapaggamitan nito? Can you put it in the chat box? And Monica and Kurt, if you have any insights on what do you think we can use this information for to be able to facilitate better well-being in the workforce, what do you think we can do?
Yes, I can start. Well, first of all, yung sinabi ko kanina, which and na-highlight dito ni Mikhail, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, na you create your ideal work environment. So, on the one hand, it's more difficult because the responsibility of creating an ideal work environment is on us now individually. Versus yung nasa office tayo, there's a whole facilities or admin. If you're in a big office, there's a whole facilities or an admin group who are responsible for this, or your leadership is responsible. Now it's ours. So that's the downside. The upside naman is we can customize to how much that we want. Alam ko ngayon, nauso before yung mga risers, yung mga libro nila, nilalagay nila dyan para naka-elevate yung mga ano nila. They can put whatever, for example, motivational poster dun sa likod ng ano nila, ng screen nila, PTS nandyan, para alam nila kung ano yung what they are working for. So definitely create your ideal work environment, preferably delineating your spaces. So there's a space for you to rest, that may be your bedroom or your bed. There is a space for you to work. So that's your setup. And also there's a space for you to be healthy, to exercise, to go out, or not necessarily out, but to be active. Delineate your spaces. And by delineate, I siguro ang rule of thumb is generally hindi sila within line of sight of each other if you have the space. But if you don't have the space, tiyagain mo na iibahin mo talaga yung, for example, my room, when I'm working, nakalatag lahat ng work, ano ko dito, laptop, screen, etc. If I need to rest, itatago ko yung laptop. Pwede ganun, itago nyo yung laptop. Wag lang ibaba, itago nyo talaga, I don't know, takpan nyo lang tela for all you want. And then if you have to exercise, move around your like, yung mga furniture nyo na pwede. You have to give yourself that feeling na I changed. Something has changed outside, so I can change inside as well.
So essentially, what you're sharing with people is they have to be intentional with drawing their own lines. Kumbaga, diba? Draw your own lines between, like if your line is like itago mo yung laptop mo, yun yung line mo. Ako, for example, my line is generally, recently, after 6 o'clock, I just start to talagang disconnect. Not with the chat box, pero like I disconnect generally with work. Like I will not come back to my workstation anymore at all. Sin phone na lang if ever, pero only for emergencies. But yeah, I love that inside of yours. And some of the other people in the chat box are also sharing, no? Like Raj said na sometimes I go to co-working spaces near my home to have somewhat a different environment in a work from home setting. Sabi ni Ana Margarita, start with an awareness campaign like these sessions and come out and not be micromanaged. Sabi ni Regina, how might we drive leadership led by, this is a question I think. How might we drive leadership led by example and champion the well-being in the workplace? Well, hang on to this, Regina, para we can answer later. We can use it as a basis on creating organization engagement and member experiences in the organization of our company. What one thing our team started doing is implementing a 4-day work week. This helps the team members to have 1 day to rest, 1 day to do chores, and 1 day to reconnect with hobbies and relationships. Oh, this is an amazing suggestion. Thank you so much, Jolina. Another message sent here anonymously is, I use short YouTube video exercises as shorts as 7 minutes to provide physical and mental pause. Ayan. So these are some of the insights of people based on what they can do with these key items.
Thank you pala dun sa mga it's not just also delineating space, it's also delineating time. Setting aside
Ah.
talaga that. And usually the tip that I see often around time is ilagay mo sa calendar mo. As in dapat nakalagay siya alongside everything else. Because it on the one hand, emotionally, psychologically, it signals na you are putting as much importance to kakain ako ng lunch, bibili ako ng milk tea, maglalakad ako, as your work, for example, your meet your client, etc.
Right. Thank you so much, Monica. Kurt, what about you? As the main lead researcher for this, if you were to think about something off the top of your head, ano sa tingin mo yung magandang paggamitan nitong key items na information that you were able to unravel?
Sa akin, very quickly, I just want to echo yung sinabi ni Julino also. Yung paggamit ng mga promoting the usage of vacation leaves, and pag-implement ng mental health days. No, talaga ako relate ako diyan kasi I actually just came back from a 3-day leave. So ngayon yung nakalive ako 2 days last week and then yesterday. So parang again what Monica said, being intentional about taking your breaks and knowing when you should be resting. Because sometimes if we neglect yung mga rest or yung mga breaks, ang nangyayari is when we do take breaks or when we do rest, we feel guilty. Kasi parang iisipin mo, I should be doing something else, I should be productive. But when we start to become more intentional about it, dun pumapasok yung, okay, deserve ko to. Parang deserve ko, to do something else, take a walk, buy milk tea, as Monica said. So, yeah.
Oh my God. So, tama yung direction natin na increase yung mga leaves natin in PW because like, it's also personally what I felt when I had a 2-week vacation naman in Europe. I felt, di ba, nakaka-guilty minsan pag gagamitin mo yung leaves kasi iisipin mo na ang dami mong pag-iiwanan ng trabaho with someone else o kaya baka mamaya sobrang unproductive mo within the days that you're not working. But I realized that when I came back, I felt so much more productive As in like, pero mo workshops ka agad yung inabutan ko when I came back and I felt so much more productive. So baka mamaya if you look at it in an equation, if you are working every day pero you're tired, and then you're working with more rest period and then you're gonna be more productive, baka yung net niya mas mataas pa rin yung nakapagpahinga ka. I'm not sure. What do you think of that, Kurt and Monica?
Ako, I definitely agree. And I want to hone in nga on, or I want to add pa to your point na when you're well rested, pagbalik mo for me kasi, di ba, we're basically when we say you're not well, we're fighting against nga yung low motivation or no motivation. For some, it goes as far as depression. And when you look at it, the opposite of all of that isn't actually rest.
Yeah.
It's energizing. It's finding something that energizes you. Kasi for example, ikaw, John, pupunta ka ng Europe, ikot-ikot ka, hindi ka lang naman natulog, hindi ka lang naman, di ba? It's doing something.
Actually, nakapagod.
Di ba? Nakapagod din siya, in fairness. Pero the kumbaga you're increasing your sorry for the economic term, you're increasing your amount of, or yung nagde-deposit ka ng positive emotions, ng positivity, di ba? And although it's not one-to-one, pagbalik mo dito, mawi-withdraw mo yan in droves, and you can, talaga naging full economist na, you can invest that into everything that you're doing and mafe-feel ng lahat ng tao, and doon magsa-start ang ripple, diba? Yeah. Bilang ikaw leader, doon magsa-start yung ripple mo.
And that's true. I like what you said na productivity is not opposite to rest. Kasi if you look at it, pag nagbakasyon ka minsan nakakapagod din 'di ba? Like lakad ka na lakad, okay. I mean, you're also going to consume physical energy. Pero why is it that when you come back, you feel so refreshed, right? When you come back, even if you expended physical energy, you refresh. Maybe because your other energies are replenished. Like emotional, relational energies are replenished. Diba? There are different types of energies. Yeah, physical, psychological, I think mental, relational. So baka nare-refresh yung mga other energies mo when you really take care of yourself through those leaves. No? So thank you so much for sharing that, Monica. So yeah, maybe we can move ahead Maraming salamat. Ang galing nung thank you so much first dun sa audience din, no, for really being part of the discussion. Wag po kayong matakot na i-share yung inyong mga experiences. Your experience is just as rich as ours. We are just processing what we were able to gather in terms of our research, and your technically your experiences are qualitative inputs to substantiate further what we were able to gather. So tulungan nyo rin po kami na maintindihan palalo kung ano yung na-research namin. So Kurt, are we okay to proceed now with the second part of the well-being report?
Yeah, just go ahead, John.
Okay.
Ayan, so here we have a Menti question to lead us into the next part of our discussion. No? So I think members of our team will send the link naman. So try to answer this question. No? So John is flashing it on the screen. What to you are 3 things that contribute to employee well-being? So para sa inyo, ano yung mga bagay na nakaka-affect sa well-being ninyo? So pwedeng word, pwedeng phrase, baka may specific experience kayo, no? So share nyo yan sa Menti and we can go through the responses.
Yeah. So to support Kurt's point, yung question niya is, I want you guys to imagine yung mga times na sobrang baba or sobrang taas ng employee well-being or ng well-being nyo as employees. Imagine kung ano yung mga factors na nakaka-contribute doon. Ano yung mga factors na nakakapag-contribute sa pag sobrang taas, paano nakakapagpataas ng well-being or nakakapagpababa lalo ng well-being? What do you think those are? Please answer them in Mentimeter. Ayan na. Okay, so we're now seeing, hindi ko muna ipapakita ulit ha, kasi baka mamaya mag-group think tayo. So maybe I'm gonna throw the ball back to Monica. Monica, what about you? From your personal experience or from your readings, ano yung nararamdaman mo na nagko-contribute to employee well-being?
Siguro both from experience and studies, and really the stories of other people. It's the relationships you have at work. It's the friendships that you have at work. Often we hear the na what's the best thing about where you're working? Okay yung mga tao, like I like the people. Usually naman that's one of the first things people cite. And definitely for me, that's always been the biggest, most impactful factor for my well-being in a workplace, over and above other things, like for example, yung compensation being fair, or even beyond yung mga engagement activities, yung mga bonding sessions na minsan pilit, minsan masaya naman. Mas masaya siya kapag friends kayo or kapag there is already a foundation of good relationships between the people you're working with.
All right. So relationships, very, very important. No? So Kurt, I won't ask you this question now because like you're the research person. But I want to ask you both. Now, what you see here, I cannot zoom in, pasensya na kayo. Pero like a lot of people have responded already.
Yeah.
And ang nakikita natin, tingnan nyo yung nakikita natin na nare-repeat is appreciation, recognition, salary, good compensation, good boss. So Monica, relationships, just like what you said. Diba? So nakikita nyo, what do you observe on these inputs, Kurt and Monica?
Yeah, so a lot like for example, nakikita mo malaki yung appreciation, salary, I think may compensation din kanina. So it kind of lines up with the 5 items that we talked about a while ago, no? And then of course, relationships, and then yung work-life balance na pinag-uusapan natin kanina shows up a lot also.
Yes. Monica, about you? Meron bang nagsistick sa'yo from the responses here?
I think one is that it's a recurring theme that it's interpersonal. Like for example, see relationships, see recognition, see appreciation. These are all, well, appreciation and recognition in particular, these are all feelings that you get from interpersonal interactions, diba? When your boss or your leader gives you recognition either privately or in front of others, it's really it can also be very much uplifting, lalo na if bosses and leaders, if makuha nyo yung gustong type of appreciation and recognition ng tao.
Yeah.
Definitely that's also very important. And then I see nga yung sabi ni Kurt, humahabol din si work-life balance. A term that has been in the zeitgeist for years and has
Right.
gone many different ano na. I think yung huli kong rinig nga is work-life blend.
Yeah.
So hindi ko na, I don't know what's the new iteration of this.
Dami, work-life integration, work-life blend, ganyan, mga iterations of the combination and the mix that we cannot avert anymore. Work-life harmony, sabi ni Vina. Ayan. Alam nyo, it's so interesting to see that, just like to what you said, Monica, no, yung interpersonal relationships, how much they matter. Kasi that is something that can be within our control. Alam mo yon, if you are a less toxic person in the workplace, diba, it becomes a more positive one, especially if there's a lot of you who are like that. Especially if you're a boss, diba? If you're a boss and if you're a less toxic person, then the ripples that you can create in terms of the positivity and the well-being of your employees will actually have a huge impact on what they're feeling in the workplace, diba? So there's so much power that leaders have over these things that people have already responded to. So I will not drag on for this, but because I really want her to zoom in on the product of the research based on the next level of analysis.
Yeah, so thanks, John, and thank you everyone for your mentee responses. So now it's time to answer the question, what does Filipino employee well-being comprise of? Using the results from the survey that we conducted, and as John mentioned, it's probably the major finding of the survey that we did. Because based on the responses, we were able to narrow it down to the 4 most important domains. And again, let's see if meron mga mag-match from your mentee responses. No? So the first domain that we have is character. So sa character, this is where psychological well-being comes into play. Dito pumapasok yung things such as autonomy, your overall agency, pag-exercise mo ng freedom and being able to parang exercise control in your life. Kasama din dyan yung competence, di ba? Kung meron ka mga certain strengths, skills na magaling ka, your ability to do things well, no? That's competence. And then of course, yung experience natin ng positive emotions. That's part of your character also. So joy, hope, ano pa ba? Love, interest, these are all different kinds of positive emotions that we experience. No? And then next slide, John. Ayan, and then of course, career. So this is the second domain. This is basically everything related to the experience of well-being at work. So how you feel like you are valued at work is very important. Merong mga nagsabi kanina dun sa mentee, recognition, appreciation, your interactions with your bosses and coworkers can also have an effect on your well-being. Pwede din yung how you handle or keep up with your responsibilities. Essentially, lahat ng workplace-related concerns, dito yan sa career domain. And then next we have, contentment. So for contentment naman, this is where overall life satisfaction falls under. Your contentment with life. Kaya we have elements here such as living conditions. And we've talked about it a lot. Again, maraming responses dun sa mentee, salary, compensation. So things that also contribute to your financial well-being naman is also very important that we should be taking into consideration. And then finally, we have 4 domains. The 4th one is, of course, connectedness. So ito na yung personal relationships natin, yung interpersonal factors. And alam naman natin na sa mga Filipino, very social, very collectivist tayo as a culture, and more often than not, we do things for reasons outside of ourselves. Kaya dito pumapasok yung family, di ba? Family relationships, spirituality, and meaning and purpose. So again, very Filipino, kasi as Filipinos, we know na mahalaga sa atin yung spirituality, yung religion, and of course, core concept sa atin yung family. Kaya again, yung halaga ng personal relationships, diba? The support that you get from your family. Kasi yun talaga yung madalas number one support system din natin, no? So, yeah. So again, no, these 4 things. Next slide, John. So, character, career, contentment, and connectedness. So we were able to narrow it down to these 4 domains. And the idea behind this sort of domains, no, is that we are trying to look at the employee as a whole person. The employee isn't just an employee, di ba? Kasi we also have other roles in our life, di ba? We are also a friend, a son, yung iba sa atin, no? Parents, mothers. So whatever happens in an area of your life also affects your life at work.
Right.
And then vice versa. So we are taking a systems approach and looking at not just the employee, but everything else that surrounds that employee na, that can affect their well-being, right? So for example, let's think of an example here. Minsan uuwi kayo from work, right? For those who have face-to-face or on-site work, diba? Uuwi kayo from work, pagod kayo, you can't wait to come home, see your family, see your loved ones. Nakakagaan siya ng loob, diba? And it can also be the opposite, diba? Pagod ka from work, and then pag-uwi mo, let's say mahirap yung sitwasyon sa bahay, pwedeng makadagdag yun sa stress mo. So there pa lang makikita natin na merong connection between the domains, right? And another example I can think of is dun sa character. If you have individual personality traits, baka meron kang certain strengths na will allow you to cope better with your challenges at work, your challenges at home, that can go a long way into improving your well-being overall, right? So it's good to have an awareness of these 4 domains because it can help us parang pinpoint kung saan ba, no? Kung saan ka nagsa-struggle, which domain you need to work on more, or siguro, no, which area you need more support on, no, from your family, from your coworkers. So it's good to sort of pinpoint kung saan yung mga areas natin na medyo may challenge pa when it comes to our well-being. And the good thing is, day 1 pa lang to ng summit. So if you've seen our promotional materials for the summit, and we'll talk about that in detail later. We have 2 more days, no? Now hopefully everyone can attend also because today really is just an introduction. No? And so December 6 and December 8, again, hopefully maka-attend tayong lahat. Makakakuha kayo ng specific strategies per domain. So whether it's character, career, connectedness, or contentment, there's going to be a dedicated session that you can attend, and we have individual experts and resource speakers who will help you unpack paano ba natin na-navigate yung character natin, yung challenges natin sa work. How do we improve on our relationships, and how do we sort of become more content in life and improve our overall life satisfaction? Because again, itong 4 na to, they all affect us as employees. So yeah, that's it. So those are our 4 domains na nahanap natin through our study. And I think John has some many questions na pwede nating point of discussion ulit.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Kurt. And I also want to double down on what you said about how this is a systems approach of appreciating well-being. Kasi we do not live in a vacuum. We do not just live in work. It doesn't mean that just because we're spending a lot of our hours in work doesn't mean that the only elements within work will affect how our well-being is. So it's a very holistic approach to looking at well-being of individuals. And second, the most important thing is this is a Filipino audience. So this is our first time to actually be able to gather materials na talagang malolocalize natin yung knowledge. That's why you saw connectedness as part of the domains. Kasi in a lot of other cultures, because they're individualist, you will not be able to see a huge chunk of spirituality as part of the domains of well-being. So nakikita nyo yung mga dimensions ng well-being in the perspective of the Filipino culture. Now let's start to involve you again in the Menti question. We want to know which among the 4 domains do you want to improve on the most? Sige nga. So can you go back to Mentimeter? So we will be sharing the link in the chat box. Of the 4 domains, which do you think which of the four domains do you want to improve on the most? So you want to see kung ano yung sa palagay nyo na, siguro ako ito. Maybe ako doon sa sa connectedness, ganyan or something. Depende. Ano sa tingin nyo? Ano sa tingin nyo yung among the four domains, which do you want to improve on the most? Monica and Kurt, kayo, like personally, which of the four domains do you want to improve on the most?
Siguro for me, well, as a professional in the organizational leadership, development sector, career is very much top of mind for me. One, because the statistic usually goes up to maybe a third of our lives at work. So it just makes sense that such a big chunk of our life has to have the resources, the research, the knowledge base in order to create those spaces and those experiences for people that add to their well-being. So as a professional, I'm leaning towards career. But as I think about it more as an individual, I think for me, especially over the pandemic, and being in remote work, it's the connectedness, because it is more difficult to feel connected to people online. Worse so kung kayo yung type na hindi kayo nag-open ng video, for example, or you don't know, ako yung, and I don't know if some people can relate, iba talaga yung pag nasa office ka, yung tatapik ka lang sa katabi mo, tapos may random comment ka lang, or random na ano, 'di ba? Pero now in online, we don't know because we don't see the person, we don't know, oh, is this a good time to chat something very random about, or gusto ko lang magpatawa, or I just saw something that was funny, or am I already, pero may ganun akong thoughts sometimes, and I realize now that I need to put more effort maybe into creating those connections, into reaching out again.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. And you, Kurt, what about you?
For me, no, since very personal din naman, I think sa akin sa character, more specifically dun sa experience ng positive emotions. Kasi I think sometimes with the, yun din, like the hustle of work, and I know for some people, meron pang mga, may mga part-time jobs pa sila. Sometimes I forget to celebrate like wins, small wins. So parang usually I'm, okay, tapos ko na to, I'll move on to the next one, tatapusin ko to, and then may susunod na naman. So sometimes I don't really get to parang experience yung parang, what it's like to actually achieve something. Yeah, and basically just being able to celebrate small wins. Kasi sometimes, lalo na kapag sobrang busy sa work, diba, ang daming kailangan gawin. And for me, I'm also currently taking my master's at the same time. So parang it's hard to like take some time to step back and really, parang give importance then to what you were actually able to achieve. So yeah, that's for me.
Oh, thank you so much, Kurt and Monica, for that vulnerability. This is such an interesting response. Grabe. I mean, the balance of like, career is ano, like yung so far at least siya yung nasa 22. Some people are in character, are in contentment. Some people in character and connectedness. You really see the diversity of where people are coming from, no? Kasi you cannot really dictate to people kung ano dapat yung maramdaman nila, kung saan sila dapat humugot ng source nila ng well-being. So this says a lot. This says a lot to me. All right. Let's go to the next question para ma-compound natin yung discussion. Let's go to the next question in Menti. The next question is, so for everyone in the room, if you were to rank the four domains according to which makes the most impact to you at work, okay? If you were to rank, ano yung pinaka nagkakaroon ng impact sa tingin mo na sa pagiging magaling mo na employee or mahusay na employee or mataas or maginhawa mo na empleyado, ano sa tingin mo yung pinaka malaki yung impact sa pinakamababang impact, by one being the highest impact and fourth being the lowest or the least impact? What do you think if you were to rank? Ayan. So while people are answering, Monica and Kurt, what do you think about what you saw kanina dun sa ano sa tingin mo ano sa tingin nila kung ano yung gusto nilang i-improve na parts? Yung you saw like a good spread, 'di ba? Of responses. What can you say about that?
I think it emphasizes the point that Kurt made earlier and you expounded on na these are domains
Hmm.
everybody goes through, and everybody goes through it in their own sort of time kung saan yung pinakakailangan ng support at ano. But at the end of the day, we are one whole human. We are one whole person. And the experience of these four is holistic. Nadadaanan mo yung apat. Or hindi naman sa dadaanan. All of them make up the one life experience that you're going through right now. And it's perfectly normal to need that support, to have a dip on one side over the others in a certain time.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. And you, Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, very, very similar to what Monica said, no? If you nakita natin parang pie chart kanina, halos equal nga eh. Parang mukhang mga around nasa 25% siguro each yan.
Yeah.
And you can, again, to the point na, the whole person and having a systems approach, we can see na not a single one is parang very dominating. Parang almost equally distributed siya to the four domains, which is yun nga, it's good kasi having awareness of these domains, yun nga, and since we know na parang, all of them are equally important, diba? So I think, yeah, it's good na people are getting this information out there also, diba? So
Yeah.
we're seeing how we can pinpoint each one. So I think, yeah, character nangunguna right now, John.
Yeah, correct. So from at least 72 respondents here, I hope others can also respond to Menti para makita talaga natin yung range nung at yung spread ng responses. So far, ang layo nung character doon sa mga iba, tapos medyo magkakalapit yung connectedness and then career and contentment. But this is a super interesting ranking. Napansin nyo? Like, in the Filipino context, this is a super interesting ranking kasi you would imagine that contentment will be a little bit either first or second, di ba? Why do you think that is the case? Bakit sa tingin nyo na yung contentment na part nandun sa lowest priority, pero yung character ang layo na nandun sa taas? I mean, this is just us, like, this is just conjecture. I mean, we're not like experts of anthropology here or culture. But ano sa tingin nyo, like in your opinion, why do you think that was the case?
For me, the impression the ranking is giving me is that we are more and more employees, Filipino or otherwise, or dispatch lang, are more purpose-driven. It's about purpose, and it's also about personhood. Ako, sino ba ako? Kamusta ba ako? Because, for example, having number one sa character, for me, it honestly makes sense because that's the part of you that is exposed to every single facet of your day. It's your bit mo yung psychological well-being mo, bit mo yung emotional well-being mo through everything. So definitely if nabubugbog siya in your personal life, pagpasok mo sa work, tas bugbugun siya, ang laki ng effect niya. And then of course connectedness, obviously because we are, well, not necessarily, certainly, but in a way because we are Filipino and we constantly, or it's in our tendency to look for those meaningful relationships in whatever facet of our life. It just, for me, it makes sense na nandun tayo right now, purpose and personhood and people. Tapos maybe the financial well-being, after you've hit your necessities, maybe it can be lower down na.
I like yung person and purpose. Yung personhood and purpose na sinabi mo, no? I would like to think na ano ba to, sobrang matiisin ba natin kaya yung contentment nandun sa fourth priority kasi like we've encountered so many crises already and tragedies and calamities every year that sometimes na-lessen yung priority ng iba. But Kurt, ikaw, na-surprise ka ba? Na-surprise ka ba dito sa result na to? at least based on this demographic?
Um, in a bit, yeah, oo. Medyo surprising. But again, taking from what Monica said na rin, no? I think yung the point kanina on yung passion tax sa mga job, I think a lot of us here in the Zoom call right now, nasa mga helping professions, mga service-oriented professions. Kaya, as I mentioned also kanina, Filipinos like doing things, for reasons like bigger than themselves. So, nandun yung passion, nandun yung fulfillment sa work, na yun, minsan, nagiging less of a priority yung financial well-being, diba? Lalo na yung mga like teachers, frontliners. Then, of course, yung connectedness also, we see it at second place, no? Yung may purpose ba itong ginagawa ko, para saan ba itong ginagawa ko. So I think that's something na a lot of Filipinos take into consideration when it comes to their well-being.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I guess like that's a very good take, no, on how important it is for us to study all of these domains and how important the different prioritizations are, because hindi naman sila lahat equal yung appreciation natin. At ang takeaway ko dito, especially dito sa previous na slide ng Mentimeter, is malaking ang ganda nung nakuha mo, Kurt, dun sa study. Kasi kung hindi tama yung domains, hindi magre-reflect na ganito yung kagustuhan ng mga tao, at least in this small demographic, as far as those 4 domains are concerned. So the fact that nagkaroon ng ganitong spread means that it's an indication of how nicely analyzed your data was when you were asking those survey questions from the respondents. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Let me now move on to the how part. How do we champion then? Ayan, how do we champion? And we will try to make this easy for you. I want you to prepare yourselves for some Christmas gifts that we will be giving you right now in terms of information. I know binigyan na namin kayo ng maraming regalo through the discussion that we've had in the last couple of minutes, but we will give you more in terms of what you can take home. Number 1, we're sharing in the chat box the Filipino Employee Wellbeing Report that we have created. The link to it, we are sharing that in the chat box now. One thing that you can do to champion well-being at work is to contextualize it in your workplace and strategize. Try to use this information and gather more inputs from your employees now that you know the 4 domains, now that you know the 4 key items. Try to localize that into your organization and see what you can get more of para magamit nyo sa paggawa nyo ng strategy. Kasi pag wala kayong strategy, it's as good as letting your well-being issues, run on its own. Diba? Siyempre, mas maganda na magawan nyo ng strategies and programa para hindi pa ulit-ulit na mangyari yung mga issues na yon in your workplaces. So that's 1. You try to contextualize well-being in your workplace and you try to strategize. And this is the copy of the report for you. Second, we want you to have this presentation. So you can download a copy of this presentation, what we did to you, what we presented to you right now. You can download a copy of this presentation from the link that will be shared in the chat box. Ayan, you download a copy of the presentation para you can present the same thing to your organization, to your top management, to your HR director, HR head, kung sino man yung may influence sa inyo para magkaroon kayo ng strategies and programs on employee well-being, considering how important it is, we're sharing that to you. Hindi namin ipagdadamot itong knowledge na to kasi ganun ka-importante yung pwede nyong magawa if ma-influence nyo yung organization nyo to make an amazing difference on employee well-being. So, that's the second one. Okay? So, meron na kayo ng employee well-being report. Meron kayong copy ng presentation, okay, na dun sa shinare namin. Third, there are 2 more days of the summit. Try to get as many people as you can in your organization to attend those 2 days. Kasi those 2 days, magdi-discuss tayo ng 4 other domains. So on December 6, we will discuss character and connectedness and tips, and those are different speakers. On December 8, we will discuss career and contentment. Those are also different speakers. So total of 4 different resource people. So please make sure to register and share this to your other teammates and colleagues. So that's the third gift that we're going to give you. And the fourth is, we would of course like you to follow our page, either in LinkedIn or in Facebook. Bakit? Kasi every day, we are releasing to you simple tips on how you can possibly manage your well-being in the simplest ways. So these are examples of, why do I feel tired all the time? How do I actually apologize to someone? Are you becoming a toxic boss? Some of our webinars that we have conducted and we will be conducting in the future. All of these will be available to you through our Facebook page. So please follow us. Kung sa LinkedIn kayo mas parate, meron kaming LinkedIn page. Kung sa Facebook kayo parate, meron kaming Facebook page. Okay? So now that we have given you all of those gifts, we have given you all of those information, let's use the last 10 minutes of this session. And we'd like to thank Kurt also for being with us. He has a class, so we had to say goodbye to him. I want to leave this quote with you before we go to the Q&A. And this is from Coach Chuck Noll. So the quote is, on every team, there is a core group that sets the tone for everyone else. If the tone is positive, you have half the battle won. If it is negative, you are beaten before you ever walk on the field. So I hope you remember this and internalize this, because all of you here who are attending today, you can be part of that core group that sets the tone for everyone else, regardless if you're a leader or not. Because you can always influence it through the knowledge that we are sharing with you. So from there, I guess we can use the time to have some Q&A before we release the post-evaluation survey. So let's do 10 minutes or less if there are no questions. So you can ask your questions via Pigeonhole. And Monica and I will try to answer your question. I will try to answer your questions based on ano yung lalabas. So you can scan the QR code or you can click the link in the chat box, tapos lalabas yung mga questions nyo dito sa Pigeonhole. Tama ba yung ano? Gabi? Admin panel or projector panel? Projector panel.
Projector panel dyan. You got it.
Tama, alright. Okay. So thank you. So kung meron kayong questions about the report, we will try to answer it even if Kurt is no longer here. Pero baka you have some questions based on the discussions. While Monica and I are here, Monica and I are not in the webinars frequently, so please make good use of the time while we are here. We have 8 minutes to be able to answer your questions. So one question here is, colleagues and friends have been checking on me and asking for career advice. How do I make sure I'm giving the right advice? Wow, this is a very generic question. Monica, what can you advise this person? Na, totoo maraming tao, minsan, pag nakikitaan tayo ng wisdom, okay, nakikita nila na medyo nakakauna-una tayo sa career, we will be asked questions like this. Diba? They're asking me for career advice. How do I make sure that I'm giving the right advice?
Well, first thing that comes to mind for me is to make sure that you're having when these people approach you, that you're having discussions. By that I mean you are really engaging them, getting more information, and not just yung mga nuggets of wisdom na ibabato-bato mo lang. Because that's how you will appreciate and acknowledge that iba-iba yung experiences natin. That's one way that you can show that, and that's something very important. Because when you go in and give your advice, you also have to go in there with the acknowledgement and, let's face it, the disclaimer that this is coming from your personal experience. That's maybe informed as well by, for example, if you've read many books, if you've read or if you've attended webinars like this. So make sure it's a discussion. Make sure that you are fully appreciating. And when I mean fully appreciating, yung talagang you have to utter it. Kailangan sabihin mo siya out loud na my experiences may be different from your experiences. Cite mo exactly what. Kasi di ba nagpapakwento ka sa kanila. Cite mo exactly na, oh, I haven't had that experience before, but this is what I think based on my experience. And then lastly, so after you made it to the discussion, you acknowledged and appreciated the differences talaga between people. You make sure na you balance out. There's always a part of us kasi that wants to be liked or that wants to make other people feel good. And one writer calls that our empathy, diba? We want to be emphatic. But then too much of that and medyo pabola na lang siya, and it can become to the point na hindi ka na talaga nakakatulong. So you have to balance out your empathy with what this author calls, and I'm quoting from Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor, which is you're challenging them directly, diba? Na because sometimes people come to us because they think they're going to hear something, diba? They're gonna hear what they want to hear. If you really want to be helpful, you have to be honest then, and you have to call it as it is. Kung ano talaga yung, diba, the situation. If it's for example, yung mga lalapit mo, am I the bad guy if ganito, ganyan. Baka kailangan mo talaga sabihin na yes, you made a mistake. That was that was not the right move, ganyan. And then, saka mo pasukan ng empathy. Oh, pero tao tayo lahat. I made the same mistakes in the past. All leaders, for example, all leaders or everyone will make mistakes in the office. And that's you being emphatic naman. So those three things, I think, will be helpful.
Thank you so much for that, Monica. And also, siguro to also support that response din ni Monica, no? You know, a lot of the things that Monica mentioned, these are actually revolving around two types of skills. Coaching and mentoring. So if you want to be more sure and develop talaga yung being able to give the right advice, you also try to explore developing yourself technically, as in skillfully, as a coach and a mentor. Kasi there are hard and technical skills talaga involved there in terms of being able to ask the right questions, listen with empathy, provide the right advice and direction, ano yung pwede mo lang ibigay, ano yung hindi mo pwedeng i-share, etc. A lot of those could help you out become more confident in providing career advice. So thank you so much for that question, and thank you, Monica, for that. Monica, ito, how do we support the well-being of our employees if we don't have the manpower or the budget to get professional services? Let's make comment here. There is already a law that these services may be made available to employees. There are well-being interventions that can be incorporated in roles and routines that you already have. Maybe that's also something you can explore. But ikaw, Monica, what do you think?
I'm thinking back on, so we've had discussions similarly in SOLA, because our focus is more on those small businesses nga, yung mga micro SMEs, mga startups, etc. And it's really going to be it's at the start, it's really going to be very informal, and it's going to be bootstrap is the term, na kayo lang to, but it's a good start na you if I'm speaking to a leader, na you as a leader can start things off simply by asking your people how they are. Like doing those day-to-day activities of asking them how they are, checking in on their being. That's something that you can start off with already. And it's also a good first step to jump off on when you are ready to grow. Kasi by then, you're basically data gathering eh.
Yeah.
Diba? Uy, kamusta ka? Uy, how many of my people have kids who are in school? So obviously, ito yung mga things na you may not realize are very important and very insightful. Pero knowing that, oh, a lot of my people have kids, so alam ko these months of the year, mas stress sila financially kasi matrikula, or who are pursuing other passions, etc. So for those who don't have budgets, and I'm sorry if I'm making the assumption that you're maybe a small lang, or a small team, or a small group, you can start it off muna with kayo-kayo. And it really will start na kayo-kayo. And then from there, as you build and you grow, and as well-being continues to be supported and increases, the hope and the outcome may be that you can start formalizing it more. You can start maybe having those trainings that John mentioned. Train your leaders to be even better at supporting their people, their people's well-being. And then eventually, baka nga hindi nyo na kailangan kumuha ng professional services sa labas kasi kayo na, alam nyo na mismo what's the best way to support well-being in your context, in your organization.
Yeah. I love that, no? Like, pwedeng kayo-kayo lang muna. Kasi hindi naman ibig sabihin professional services agad yung kailangan in order to increase well-being in the workplace. It's possible that baka mamaya support system muna. Just like what you're saying, Monica, in bootstrapping, di ba? Like, usually naman, culture starts with a few people. So kung kayo-kayo mismo, meron kayong shared values, tas kunyari ito, yung shared knowledge na nakuha nyo dito sa mga ganitong learning sessions, na i-apply nyo in smaller groups, tapos nag-benefit kayo dun sa mga application, nagsistay yung mga practices kasi nagbe-benefit kayo. That's how cultures are made. Diba? Pag meron kayong inintroduce na knowledge or learning, nag-benefit kayo ng tuloy-tuloy, tapos nung nag-benefit kayo, naging consistent na practice na siya, kultura yon. And maybe that's how you should start it muna. That's how we started it in Positive Workplaces. We don't have money. We didn't have money. Nung nagsimula kami, up until now naman, like, we're not like a rich organization. Pero like, when we were starting, we didn't have money talaga. We only had values, ourselves, our learning. Pero because of those shared learnings and values, tas na-cultivate siya, naging protective yung organization about well-being naturally. And maybe that could also be, just like what Monica was saying, could start with you muna. Could start with a few of you. Maybe we can take last two questions, Monica, because we have less time. I also want to read lang some of the responses of AJ Songlao in the chat box. Hi, AJ. Nice to see you. See you on Saturday. Sabi ni AJ, it's also very important to ask if dun sa first question to, if the advice is what's going to help or support the person. Tama nga naman, pwedeng hindi yung advice yung kailangan. Pwedeng tanungin muna natin kung ano yung kailangan ng tao. Tapos tsaka pwedeng yun yung ibigay. And mental health law, unfortunately, does not specify you need professional services. It's still a bit vague in terms of even compliance. Ganyan. Sabi rin ni Archer, it will be a challenge implementing change without management support. So Monica, this is the next question. What if we're already implementing mental health programs, but we still encounter low motivation in our employees? That's a tricky question, no? We're already implementing mental health programs, but you still encounter low motivation.
Oo, paano na?
I have a very quick answer to this.
Go.
It's possible that the mental health programs might not necessarily be the highest impact ones that addresses the needs of the employees who have the lowest well-being. Kasi if you are implementing mental health programs that significantly is relevant, you will see the effect. Diba? Cause and effect yun eh. May introduce ka, hindi mo nakikita yung effect. Baka hindi niya na i-address kung ano talaga yung mga pinakailangan. So might have to revisit what exactly are those mental health or well-being issues of the organization. Ikaw, Monica, what do you think?
Yeah, so actually when I saw this question, I automatically put on my project manager hat na parang, so how are you monitoring and evaluating the impact of this program? So if you know that you that the indicator that you're looking at is, for example, motivation is still quite low habang may mental health program, then that's a sign that you may have to adjust things. You may have to even go back down to the drawing board. And sabi nga ni Jolina, you check in with the employees what exactly they need. Maybe earlier on in the program, that is exactly what they needed, na they needed mental health support. But as they grew stronger, as they learn to cope more by themselves, maybe nag-change yung atmosphere of your organization, which is perfectly normal and at some level expected.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Monica. But you are right kasi ano siya parang it has to be the correct. Kumbaga, ano yung root cause? Ano yung root cause ng low well-being low well-being ng employees? Kasi if that's not being addressed, and I think that's why it's very helpful that we're presenting this Filipino Employee Wellbeing Report kasi you don't have to start from zero. You don't have to start from scratch to find out which specific domains your employees might be lacking. Kasi you can start asking questions in line with some of those domains because you know that they are the ones that are important. So, gamitin nyo yung information that we are sharing with you para malaman nyo po, makalapit kayo doon sa pinakamalapit na cause of low well-being in your workforce at magawan nyo ng programa na relevant yung mga issues na yun. So,
Exactly.
So yeah, you know what? There are a lot of questions and what we will try to do siguro is we will try to answer this in social media na lang because we don't have any more time and I don't want to take too much from Monica's time and also the people who have attended this day one session. So what we're going to do from here, well, number one is I would like to thank Monica, really. I would like to thank Monica for saying yes to us, to Positive Workplaces and sharing your wisdom with us, what you were able to study, what you were able to experience also in your previous organizations. Maraming salamat. And we are so excited, Monica, to have you more, diba, as part of our collaborators, possible consultants in the future. Excited to see you on Saturday as well. So yeah, what about you, Monica? Do you have like any final words to leave to our people before we release the evaluation sheets?
Well, first and foremost, thank you then, John, and Positive Workplaces for having me on. Yes, I will definitely say yes to Positive Workplaces and like building and enhancing well-being in Filipino workplaces. That's what we're really saying yes to today. Thank you as well for all the participants that joined today, those who were very vocal in the chat, as well as those who were silently listening and just soaking it up all. We really hope that this is the start of another great big ripple outward for Filipino employee well-being. Siguro if I can impart one nugget of wisdom out of all of this, is going back to the first point or first question of why is well-being important, and excuse the fluff na onte. Employee well-being, Filipino well-being, your well-being is important because first and foremost, you are important. You are important, your personhood, your dreams, your thoughts, etc. Talagang fluff is very important, not just to the economy, to the productivity of it all, but to all other facets of your life, to your family, to your friends, etc. And if we want to create a nation with good well-being, we have to appreciate that in ourselves as well as in each other. So we can co-create, co-build, co-nurture well-being in each other.
Yes, thank you so much, Monica, for that. I want to second that. No, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat na umattend ng ating day one. We are looking for so many more kindred spirits and champions of well-being in the country. Kasi nga hindi naman siya madaling laban di ba? Ang dami-dami ng organizations and mga tao na nagsasuffer because of walang strategy or hindi maganda yung strategy ng organizations in terms of well-being. Magtulungan po tayo. Reach out to us, ask us questions, interact with us in social media. Kasi po, pag hindi po natin to ginawa ng overall country strategy, na meron naman pong mga willing na tumulong, di ba hindi naman po natin maaayos ng mas malaki in a bigger scale? So that's what we're starting to do now. We're starting to create knowledge through a localized version of a Filipino well-being scale. We have done a local version of the report, and we will continue to gather more para po matulungan pa natin kayo through the knowledge and information that we will be able to get from the research that we will also continue to produce for everyone. So without further ado, again, last na, we are going to share the evaluation sheet in the chat box. Please fill it out correctly with your right names and your right email addresses para po makakuha kayo ng certificate of attendance for day 1. Sana po ma-share nyo po yung day 2 and day 3 pa sa inyo pang mga other employees and colleagues. And if it's okay, pwede po ba nating i-document yung ating mga sarili by taking a photo? Yan. So sayang naman po, like lalo na kayong mga nakaayos. Thank you. Hi Regina, hello. I hope your yoga is doing well. I still remember. Hello, ayan si our usual audiences. Hello, nice to meet you. Yeah, magbukas po kayo. Ay, Gabby, Joyce, and Kelly, if you can open para makita rin kayo sa screen kahit hindi pa kayo naliligo. Joke lang. Ayan, para walang bakante yung screen. Alam mo na, sayang naman yung ginawa mo, Kelly, na na virtual background. All right. So Gabby, can you please direct us for the photos?
Yes, okay, everyone. For those of you who want to join in, sinend namin sa chat box yung background. And make sure to hold your smiles because we have 12 pages. It's so nice to see each and every one of you. Okay, so kindly hold your smiles. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, taking the first page. Next page, 1, 2, 3. Next page, 1, 2, 3.
Ayan, parang may attendance sheet kayo para mapakita nyo na totoong umattend kayo ng the very first Filipino Employee Wellbeing Summit. Ayan, para talaga namang you're part of this historic event. Sana po makita namin kayo sa day 2 and day 3. At maraming salamat po ulit sa inyo. Gabby, thank you so much. Thank you so much everyone for those who have been repeatedly joining us. Regalo po namin sa inyo.